President HH breaks silence. His emotional prayer for Edgar Lungu and sends heartfelt message to family. In a moment that silenced an entire nation, President Hakainde Hichilema finally bowed his head and prayed. Not as a rival, not as a politician, but as a man, standing before God and the people of Zambia, praying for the soul of Edgar Chagwa Lungu. His words carried both weight and warmth. Some say it was the most emotional statement HH has ever made since taking office. Others believe it was something deeper, a message not only to the Lungu family, but to the entire nation. What did he really say behind that prayer? Was this a call for healing, or a quiet message about power, legacy, and forgiveness? Tonight, we uncover the full meaning behind President HH's emotional prayer for his late predecessor, and why it's leaving Zambians divided between admiration and suspicion. Welcome to InspirAfrica Official, where we tell Africa's stories with truth, depth, and perspective. In this episode, we dive into President Hakainde Hichilema's heartfelt prayer and message to the family of the late Edgar Lungu. It was not just a political statement. It was a moment that touched every Zambian, regardless of party, tribe, or belief. But as emotional as it was, this prayer has also sparked conversations. What does it reveal about the relationship between HH and the Lungu family? And more importantly, what does it mean for Zambia's unity moving forward? Stay with us as we unpack the story behind the words, the reactions it stirred, and the deeper message that may redefine Zambia's political tone in the months ahead. Subscribe for more deep, factual political documentaries from InspirAfrica Official. Turn on notifications so you never miss Zambia's biggest political updates. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of President HH's message? The moment that stunned the nation, it was a moment that silenced an entire nation. Notarelli. Not a press conference, but a simple prayer, one that carried the weight of Zambia's history. President Hakainde Hichilema, standing before hundreds at State House Chapel, bowed his head and did something few expected. He prayed, not as a politician or rival, but as a man, for the soul of the late President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. His voice trembled slightly as he said, "We may have disagreed in politics, but before God, we are all his children. May the Lord grant peace to his family and to this nation. Father, we thank you for the life of our brother, Edgar Chagwa Lungu," HH began softly. "We may have disagreed in politics, but before you, we are all your children. Grant him eternal peace, and comfort his family in this hour of pain." The room fell still. Some gasped quietly, others closed their eyes in prayer. The moment was raw, emotional, and deeply human. For months, the nation had been consumed by anger, conspiracy, and political rivalry. But that single prayer, sincere and unguarded, cut through the noise. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire across Zambia. On Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, millions watched the president's trembling voice and the tears glistening in his eyes. Hashtags like #HHPraise for Lungu and #MomentOfHealing began trending nationwide. Even his harshest critics paused. "This is the HH we needed to see," one commenter wrote. Another said, "For once, politics took a back seat to humanity." And for a brief moment, the shouting stopped. The divisions seemed smaller. Zambia stood still, not in anger or mourning, but in reflection. Because what the nation witnessed wasn't just a prayer. It was a bridge between two eras, and perhaps the beginning of healing. A nation divided by legacy, united by grief. Ever since Edgar Chagwa Lungu's passing, Zambia has been a nation wrestling with itself. Was he a hero who stood tall for the poor? A villain who let power slip through his fingers? Or simply a misunderstood man? One who bore the burdens of leadership in times when the country's soul was being tested? For many, Lungu's death marked the end of an era, one that shaped Zambia's identity, both politically and emotionally. It was an era filled with contradictions. Moments of economic progress shadowed by corruption scandals, and public displays of faith contrasted with deep political divides. Yet, through it all, one truth remained undeniable. Edgar Lungu was a son of Zambia. And that's exactly what President Hakainde Hichilema's emotional prayer reminded the people of. When HH bowed his head that morning, he didn't talk about politics, elections, or power. He spoke only of humanity, of forgiveness, unity, and the shared pain of loss. A Lusaka resident told InspirAfrica official, "When HH prayed, it felt like Zambia took a deep breath. We needed that moment. We've been fighting ghosts of the past for too long." Political analysts echoed the same sentiment, saying that HH's gesture was more than symbolic. It was a message to a wounded nation that healing is possible. For the Lungu family, it was a rare moment of compassion. For the Patriotic Front supporters, it was a show of dignity. And for the wider public, it was a reminder that true leadership isn't measured by titles or votes, but by grace. In that quiet chapel, even if only for a moment, the rivalry between HH and Lungu dissolved. What remained were two stories, two men, forever bound by destiny and the dream of one Zambia. The message to the Lungu family. After his deeply moving prayer, President Hakainde Hichilema reportedly went a step further, sending a private written message to the Lungu family. The note, quietly delivered through official channels, was later confirmed by a senior government source. In the letter, HH expressed his personal condolences to former First Lady Esther Lungu and her children. He described Edgar Chagwa Lungu as a leader who served Zambia with strength and conviction, through challenges that tested both his faith and his courage. One key line stood out and has since been shared widely across social media. "May the Lord comfort you in this season of loss." Let us all remember that leadership, though temporary, is a calling to serve, and service never dies. Though brief, those words carried a weight that words rarely do. They came from a man often accused of being cold toward his predecessor's legacy. Yet in that message, there was warmth, humility, and respect. Sources close to the Lungu household revealed that Esther Lungu was deeply touched by the letter. One relative told InspirAfrica official, "For the first time, Mama Esther felt seen, not as a political widow, but as a grieving woman." The president's message meant more than 1,000 press conferences. For months, tension had clouded relations between the Lungu family and the current government, from disputes over burial logistics to accusations of political interference. But HH's handwritten message seemed to ease that strain, even if just a little. In a country where politics often overshadows empathy, this small act served as a reminder that leadership is not only about power or policy, it is about humanity. And sometimes, one compassionate gesture can bridge even the deepest divides. Public reaction, hope, doubt, and reflection. The reaction across Zambia was immediate, emotional, and deeply divided. From Lusaka's busy markets to the quiet corners of rural villages, everyone seemed to be talking about one thing: President Hichilema's prayer for his late predecessor. For many, it was a moment of hope. Supporters of HH hailed the gesture as statesmanship at its best, praising the president for showing humility and maturity in the face of national grief. One youth leader from Kitwe posted on X, formerly Twitter, "If this is the new politics, I'm proud to be Zambian. This is the kind of leadership that heals wounds." In a nation often fractured by partisanship, HH's act of empathy felt like a rare bridge between political tribes. Some citizens even called it a spiritual reset for Zambia, proof that compassion could still exist in power. But not everyone was convinced. Critics within the Patriotic Front, PF, accused the government of using emotion to manipulate public perception. They claimed the prayer came at a convenient time, as controversy around Lungu's death and the family's legal troubles continued to dominate headlines. One PF supporter told InspirAfrica official, "It's easy to pray in public when the cameras are rolling. Real compassion happens in private." Political analyst Dr. Joseph Mbu, however, offered a more balanced take. In politics, even sincerity is viewed through suspicion. But if this moment leads to reconciliation, then history will remember it as a turning point. Across churches and radio stations, pastors and callers alike echoed a single message: forgiveness. "When leaders pray for their enemies," said one Lusaka pastor during a Sunday sermon, "nations begin to heal." And for that brief, unforgettable moment, Zambia did.
A nation reflects forgiveness, legacy, and the future.
As the soft candlelight flickered through the chapel that evening, something extraordinary happened. Zambia paused. The tension, the political noise, the endless blame. For a moment, all of it faded. What stood out was not power or rivalry, but humanity. President Hakainde Hichilema's prayer for Edgar Lungu wasn't just an act of condolence. It was a bridge being rebuilt between two eras that had long stood apart. While the prayer did not erase the pain or controversies of the past decade, it opened the door to something more meaningful: healing. For years, Zambians have watched their leaders tear one another apart, their followers divided by party lines and bitterness. But that single act of humility, HH bowing his head for his predecessor, reminded everyone that leadership is not just about victory, it's about virtue. Political observers say this could redefine HH's legacy as the 2026 elections draw near. Instead of a vengeful reformer, this moment painted him as a national healer, a man willing to forgive, to unite, and to lead beyond politics. Even PF insiders quietly admitted that the prayer changed something. "It's hard to attack someone who prays for you," one insider said. "It softened hearts, even among those who swore never to forgive." Dr. Chisha Kalaba captured the sentiment perfectly. When HH prayed for Lungu, he wasn't praying for a man. He was praying for Zambia's soul. It was about who we want to become. As HH's final words echoed, "May God heal our nation, may he bring peace to every heart that mourns," Zambia was reminded of a timeless truth. Power fades, politics shifts, but grace endures. Because sometimes, the greatest act of leadership is a prayer whispered in humility.